What's going on YouTube? So Mazda has long had a reputation for not making just fun to drive vehicles, but also vehicles that stand out from the competition in regards to luxury.
And this is their largest and most luxurious model yet, the all-new CX-90.
So has this elevated the segment to a whole new level? We've been testing this CX-90 out for the past 7 days to find out. Now, like always, let's kick off the review under the hood for our spec dump. So what we have for today's example is the plug-in hybrid variant. That means we have a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine paired with a 17.8 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack. Total system is 323 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, and we'll of course describe the other powertrains a little later in the video.
All models are going to have an 8-speed automatic and are routed to the ground via an all-wheel drive system that is standard equipment. The all-electric range is rated at 26 miles by the EPA, but we actually went and tested that figure out in our real-world range test that is already live on the channel if you want to see how far this CX-90 will go on a single charge.
Now, of course, later on in this video, we're going to take this out for an extensive test drive. We're going to show you all the performance details. We're also going to get things like our signature sound level reading so that we can compare to the competition on carconfections.com. But first, let's close up the hood because we really need to take a look at the beautiful exterior design. Now, when we first tested this out in Napa Valley, California earlier this year, we thought it looked really stunning. But it wasn't just the environment, because now that we have it here in Kentucky, this has really been getting a lot of attention this week. It has really nice proportions, and it has applied the newest version of the Mazda design language. So it's very classy looking, especially here in the front. You've got that classic kind of black waterfall grille. You've got the chrome trim that's going to run around through here, and you do have a little chrome accent down at the bottom as well. That chrome trim is going to bleed into the headlight cluster, which is also very premium. Full LED headlights are going to be standard on all versions of the CX-90. As you can see, projector LEDs. You also have a separated LED daytime running light and turn signal indicator right here. Just be aware that you're not going to have any traditional fog lights down below. Now, as we move around to the rear design, you'll continue to find a swoopier, more dynamic look than a lot of the competition has right now.
Yeah, I've certainly been enjoying looking at this vehicle for the last 7 days, and really a big element of the rear design are the taillights. And while this may drive like a BMW, Mazda owners actually use their turn signal. So we want to see if all 3 elements are LED in this taillight unit. So Drew's going to go ahead and hop inside. We do have an LED brake light portion, LED reverse light, and LED turn signal indicator. We do also have that nice fading in and out design. This is actually the standard taillight unit for all CX-90 models, so big thumbs up from me. Now, as we drop down to the lower area, all of this is going to be finished in a nice body color. No exposed exhaust outlets on any CX-90, which I thought was a little interesting. And your max tow rating on the CX-90 is 5,000 pounds.
Now, moving on to our wheels, we are going to have 21-inch contrast alloy wheels here on the Premium Plus version of the plug-in hybrid trim level. These are very nice looking wheels. I love this design, the little contrast accents through there. It looks super nice as well with this model's artisan red paint color, a new color for the Mazda brand. Now, one of the only ways you'll know this is the plug-in hybrid is by having this PHEV badge here on the side, nice and subtle looking. And as we move to the mirrors, these are going to have all the features on this top model. So you're going to have power fold, auto dimming on the driver's side, blind spot monitoring, as well as heating.
Now, here at the side, you can really see that this is actually a rear drive platform here with the CX-90, which is why it really has that really good proportion that you see in a lot of luxury vehicles, but not really on the mainstream side of things. Now, as far as the overall length, it's also going to be larger than most of the mainstream rivals, coming in at about 201 inches long. For reference, a Hyundai Palisade and a Kia Telluride is only about 196 inches long, so quite a bit longer than the average thing in the segment. Now, as far as other design elements, I do want to point out, here on the plug-in hybrid, even though we have the fully loaded model, we're going to have the blacked out wheel arches and lower area down here. I actually would really like if Mazda just went ahead and made this body color. You can actually get that, but you have to choose the Turbo S powertrain, so I'm a little disappointed in that. But let's go ahead and talk about the safety systems for those of you that certainly need it. Mazda is going to include all 4 of your active safety features as standard equipment on the CX-90. Additionally, rear auto braking is available on this model. Well, that wraps up the exterior design, and if you're new here, we're brothers, and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
Now, your parents might have told you it's what's on the inside that really matters. So let's go ahead and check out the interior. But first, take a look at the key fob. Typical Mazda key fob, kind of squared off design here. You do have standard smart entry on all models. And to get inside, you're just going to reach behind the handle. That will unlock the door and fold the mirrors outward. Now take a look inside of this cabin. This is an all-new interior design for the CX-90 and really pushes luxury to a new point for the Mazda brand. So let's start by talking about some basic material and color selections here. So you are going to have leather on all 3 trim levels of the plug-in hybrid version, which, by the way, it is just available in 3 versions if we didn't explicitly mention that already. When you choose to have this top trim level, this is going to get you Napa leather, very soft and supple. I do like the color contrast accents that we have through here. You have the choice of black or grayish. And then that super premium interior you may have seen is reserved for the 3.3 TS. Now, as we go down to the seats themselves, they're going to be 8-way power adjusting with 2-way lumbar support, and you do also have memory seating located right here. But let's go ahead and climb inside. Now, this model really walks the line between mainstream and luxury SUVs, and the interior certainly supports that. So looking at the rest of the cabin materials, we do have a nice leather-covered armrest. By the way, extremely soft and padded. You have leather running through the center section and soft-touch plastic along the top. So we move to the upper dash. This is all going to be a nice soft-touch plastic. We have a full leatherette trim running through the center section with color contrast stitching. And then we've got some kind of aluminum-like trim running through the center console here and a nice leather pad along it. Everything does fit together extremely well and feels very solid. Now to start up, just push the standard button. Now as we move into the first-person perspective, take a closer look at the details. The first place we're coming to is the gauge cluster arrangement. This is a full digital gauge cluster, as you can see. You got different designs that you can pick depending on which drive mode you're in. You can also change some of the information over here on the side as well. More important than this, though, is the fact that we have a head-up display. And this is a really good head-up display. Mazda shows you everything you need to know. It even puts your blind spot information up there, which is quite helpful. Now you do have rain-sensing wipers on board with this model, and as far as our steering wheel, we've got the newest Mazda design, nice leather-wrapped steering wheel. It is manually tilt and telescoping here on the Premium Plus plug-in hybrid. You can get power adjustment if you choose the different engine option instead, and we are also having steering wheel heating as well. Now as we turn over here to our center console, we've been doing a new thing called the donut test. You know why we do the donut test? Mason knows. It's because that is our logo. And we'll open up the console and see how well this Mazda does. Now, unfortunately, this console is pretty shallow, especially for a large 3-row SUV such as this. And because of that, it does fail our donut test because we have to fit a dozen of these donuts in here to pass. And as you can see, this is just 9 donuts because it is quite shallow. But up in front of that, we still have our 2 cup holders. We have a little storage area up here, which is a wireless phone charging pad as well. And otherwise, there's not really too many other cubbies besides for in the door trim. Now, taking a look at our shifter here, this is an electronic shifter. You're going to press to the side to go into reverse and pull down for drive, of course. You do have paddle shifters on the steering wheel, even though this is the plug-in hybrid, by the way. When in reverse, here is what the 360 camera looks like. You do have active trajectory over there on that one, and you can change the angles on that side as well with front and rear parking sensors. You also have an electronic parking brake, and you have your brake hold located right here. Now next to that, we do have our control knob for the infotainment system. We also have our volume knob for the audio system. So as you expect, this model does have the upgrade. This is the Bose 12-speaker center point sound system, and we'll give it a sample right now. Yeah, so overall sound quality of this system is top notch. Really fills up the cabin nicely. Just be aware though that it is very bass heavy. So if that's your personal preference in music, you will be very happy with it. Now taking a look at the climate controls, we do have a 3-zone automatic setup as you'd expect. Nice and easy to adjust with these toggles, and you have physical controls for all the rest of the functions as well, including our 3-stage heated seats and 3-stage ventilated seats on this top Premium Plus trim. Now let's turn our attention up here to our main display. So, before we get into the software itself, I do want to mention that you've got two different display sizes. You have a 10.25-inch display, which is going to be standard on your lower models, and then this 12.3-inch display, which is going to be included on your Premium Plus trim levels. This is a very nice looking display, high resolution. Right now I'm in the Android Auto infotainment system, and the important thing to know about this is the fact that, as you can see, I'm touching the display. When I'm in Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, I can touch the screen and it does work exactly the same as any other model, but once you're in Mazda software like I am right now, you cannot touch the display. This is going to be locked in to just using that control knob that I was showing you earlier. Now as I move above here, we do have a auto-dimming mirror, 3 HomeLink universal remotes built into it. Of course you have LED lighting as well. And then as you'd expect, we've got a nice large panoramic sunroof. This is going to be included again on your top trim levels, and the front portion does open up.
Now, even though this is a Mazda, it is still a 3-row Mazda, so let's talk about the practicality that you're going to get with the CX-90. Now, as far as the rear legroom, let's start with that. 39.4 inches of rear legroom, 39.3 inches of headroom. If you're comparing that to its mainstream rivals like Hyundai Palisade, Toyota Highlander, Honda Pilot, those rivals, that is going to be behind a couple inches in terms of legroom for the CX-90. That being said, I'm 5'9". I still have about 8 inches of knee space. My feet can easily slide up underneath the seat, so it's not going to be a problematic amount of space, that is for sure. Now I do also have the option to slide my seat forward and back a very good distance, as well as recline this seat. Now, as you can see, we have the captain's chair set up on this particular CX-90. That does also mean that we have this pop-out center console that allows us to have 2 cup holders, which I do like, or for the kids to put their booger collection in there. They could also use it for that. And then as far as here in the center, we do have standard rear air vents on every single CX-90 model, 2 USB ports as well. Dropping below that, there's your climate controls. Heated rear seats are going to come on Premium Plus trim levels. I do have something to talk about here, though, because the Turbo S Premium Plus gets ventilated rear seats. So for the plug-in hybrid, you actually cannot get that. I can have toasty buns, but I cannot cool those buns back off for the plug-in hybrid, which honestly kind of leaves me a little feeling left out for this model. Now, let's go ahead and turn to the door trim. One thing I want to point out about the door itself is that it opens at nearly a 90-degree angle, which certainly is beneficial for those of you that want to load in child seats or whatnot. That will help you to really maximize the amount of room that you have. Additionally, we have rear window sunshades for this fully loaded model. We're going to have a nice door trim, soft touch, some silver trim, leather wrap in the armrest portion, as well as some bottle storage down in the very bottom, as you can see, is being utilized right now, and it's quite a lot of space. You could definitely fit multiple bottles in there. And let's go ahead and check out the third row and see where it lands on the Car Confections third row scale, so we can compare that to some of its main rivals. So in order to get back here, they have made it pretty easy. So you just grab this little lever right here that folds the seat back forward and allows it to easily slide out of the way. And before I get back here, I kind of want to invite Drew to go look at the third row itself. As you can see on this plug-in hybrid Premium Plus trim level, we do have 3 third row seats. So that means on this particular model, we have 7 passenger seating. You can, it does depend on the trim level how much seating you're going to have, though, because you can have as little as 6-passenger seating or as much as 8-passenger seating if you have the bench seat here in the second row. But let's go ahead and get back here. Let's see how it is. All right, so as far as space is concerned, we're sitting at a little over 30 inches of legroom, 37 inches of headroom, so that is going to be less than Hyundai Palisade, Kia Telluride, but it's going to be more than the regular size Toyota Highlander. The Grand Highlander will have more than this, but not a bad space overall. As you can see, the thigh support is a little bit lacking. My feet can slide up underneath the seat. I do also have 2 cup holders, a USB port, and vents are right here in the bottom area, which I think is a little bit weird. I would have preferred them to actually come out of the ceiling. But all that being said, as far as how it lands on the scale, this is going to be in-law approved third row. It's not a great place to spend time, but it's definitely going to be good enough for kids or people that you don't like too much here in the third row. Now walking up to the tailgate, we do have a standard power one. It's also going to be hands-free on your higher end trim levels. Now, as far as the space is concerned in the CX-90, let's go ahead and talk about the practicality side. 16 cubic feet behind the third row seating. If I reach up here and fold the third row down, we're going to have a cargo capacity of 40 cubic feet behind the second row. I do not have buttons to fold the second row from the cargo area, so I will have to go up there and fold it manually, but as a maximum, we're sitting at about 75 cubic feet in the CX-90. Now, it's going to depend on what you're comparing it to. That is more than the Acura MDX if you're looking on the luxury side. However, it's going to be quite a bit less than Palisade, quite a bit less than stuff like the Grand Highlander if that's what you're more comparing the CX-90 to. And I went ahead and folded that second row down so we can get our length measure from the back of the driver's seat to the rear of the cargo area. We are sitting at 85 inches of length, which is very good. I'm not surprised by that because this is a long vehicle for the segment. Now, where it's going to be lacking is when it comes to the width. So we're sitting at about 40 inches wide, which is not terrible, but I do believe that it could be a little wider. It looks like it kind of is scrunched in a little bit to accommodate for the third row, like climate controls and all that, as well as the two 1500 volt or 1500 watt power outlets back here that is definitely going to be useful for tailgating. Now underneath of here you have a little storage for your charging cable, but no spare tire. Alright guys, we're behind the wheel for our 7-day test of this Mazda CX-90, and in this test drive we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, as you can see on the screen right now, including getting our Car Confections sound level reading. But first we're going to start with a hard acceleration and see what this plug-in hybrid has to offer in terms of performance.
And that was 60 miles per hour with the plug-in hybrid version of the CX-90. So, of course, when you're going for a really hard acceleration and you're just in the normal drive mode like we are right now, that is going to turn on the engine to help give you the maximum amount of power. What is that power? It's 330 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque, so good numbers on board with that. From a 2.5 liter 4-cylinder engine in combination with that 17.8 kilowatt hour lithium ion battery pack.
So 323 horsepower is a correction there. And as far as the other powertrain options, we mentioned those on the spec dump that you do have two other options for the CX-90. So if you don't want the electrified version, you don't have to get that. There's a 3.3 liter turbo inline 6-cylinder with the lower tune. That's going to be on the lower trim levels of the CX-90. That's making 280 horsepower, 332 pound-feet of torque. That pretty much puts it in line with like the mainstream rivals in terms of power, like a Hyundai Palisade or a Toyota Highlander, those types of competitors. They do also have the higher tuned Turbo S model, which is what we drove pretty extensively in California, and that's going to have your higher tuned 340 horsepower, 369 pound-feet of torque tune, and certainly that is a very powerful option, but really not that different from what we're getting here with the plug-in hybrid. It's only about 10 or about 20 horsepower more than the plug-in hybrid and the exact same amount of torque. So not massive performance enhancements for going for the Turbo S.
Although, I mean, in terms of in practice, when you're actually driving it around, it is quite a bit faster than this model. Now, even though this is a hybrid system, it does have a traditional transmission on board. It's an 8-speed automatic transmission. As far as performance of this transmission, it's relatively smooth. It does a pretty good job. One thing I do want to mention is when you're using it as a traditional hybrid, as in when the power transitions between EV to gas-powered motor, sometimes you can feel that. Just depends on which speed. We've noticed that it's not exactly as smooth as, say, like the benchmark Toyota hybrid system, where you can't really tell that transition. If you're at a lower speed in particular, you might feel a little bit of a transition.
Yeah, and as far as how the power is routed to the ground, all-wheel drive is standard equipment on the CX-90, so you don't mess around with front-wheel drive or rear drive or anything like that. It's going to be all-wheel drive exclusive. And, since we're talking about, efficiency and things, I will just go ahead and get this out of the way. The plug-in hybrid is rated at 26 miles of EPA rated range. We already have a range test that we did on this particular model, a real-world range test, which is something that we do here at Car Confections. And you can go watch that video if you want to see how much real-world range that we got. Hint, it's not what the EPA got, so you'll want to go watch that video and find out what we got in our test. And as far as the fuel economy and the other engine options, it's going to be 25 miles a gallon combined for both of the tunes. So it doesn't matter if you go for the Turbo S or just the regular Turbo model, you're going to have 25 mpg, which is very good fuel economy. And it's worth noting that both of those powertrains do have the mild hybrid setup that helps boost that fuel economy up to that 25 mpg. And just kind of cruising along in the CX-90, I do want to talk about your ride quality for this model. We are going to have very good ride quality. We've lived with this vehicle for the last 7 days, so we've certainly got a very good sample size of the ride quality, and we've been pretty impressed with it. I believe this is one of about the average thing in the segment when it comes to the ride quality. Even with the 21-inch alloy wheels, when you hit a bump, it doesn't make too much intrusion inside the cabin, and I find these seats pretty comfortable. I will say that maybe some of the other rivals in the segment have slightly more comfortable seats. They don't have a ton of squish to them, but I found that they're very supportive on long road trips.
Right, and the percentage that this is a little bit tighter in terms of the suspension is something that pays off when we're talking about the driving dynamics, which we're going to talk about in just a moment. But first, we should probably get our sound level reading, since we're on the nice stretch of road to do that.
And before we started slowing down there, we were sitting at 52.2 decibels, guys. That is very impressive sound level reading. I'm going to go to carconfections.com and see how it compares to some of the rivals, but I know that's pretty darn impressive, that's for sure. And as far as how that compares to some of the rivals, well, like I said, I knew that was a good sound level reading, and indeed it is. It puts it as number 2 in the entire segment. And of course it makes sense because the engine wasn't even powered on, because this is a plug-in hybrid, so you're getting no engine noise whatsoever.
Now, I talked a little bit about kind of foreshadowing to the dynamics of this SUV. And as you go around a corner, you'll be reminded that just because this is a large 3-row SUV doesn't mean Mazda has forgotten its roots. Thankfully, it does keep those strong areas that Mazdas have in terms of driving dynamics. Now, of course, you're going to feel the weight. This is not a Miata. It's a heavy SUV, but it is very well controlled. When you go around a corner, it feels pretty nice and balanced. It minimizes body roll a lot better than a lot of the competition does. And the best thing about it for me is going to be the steering system. Most of the rivals have just extremely vague steering. This steering setup is pretty heavy actually for this class of vehicle, and very responsive. As soon as I turn off center, you see we get that immediate response. That's very nice for a vehicle like this. Now I'm going to accelerate under the pure electric power to show you about that.
not bad.
It's really not bad at all. That's one of the things that's really impressed us this week, is because this electric motor is so powerful. It makes up just about the same amount of power as the gasoline engine itself. So you're dealing with a pretty substantial amount of power. So when you go into the EV drive mode like I just did, you can floor the accelerator. It's not going to turn on the engine no matter what, and you can still very easily keep up with traffic. Now, we haven't gotten into our slam dunk and airball yet, so it seems like it's time to do that. I'm going to start off with the slam dunk, and that is going to be the driving dynamics as well as the powertrain selection. It kind of all goes hand in hand. You have sporty driving feel when you're out on the road. You have the availability of some very powerful inline six-cylinder engines, as well as this unique plug-in hybrid variant, because most of the competition, whether you're talking about luxury or mainstream, is not going to be offering a plug-in hybrid, and all that kind of comes together to make a very satisfying and unique experience behind the wheel.
And as far as our airball is concerned, not all things are good with the CX-90, and one of the things that we especially noticed over our 7-day test was that it's just simply not as practical or packaged as well as a lot of the mainstream rivals. We reviewed a Hyundai Palisade and a Nissan Pathfinder during this week-long test, and it really just shines or shows how, you know, there's not a ton of storage up here in the front. The center console is real small. The second row is not as big. The third row is not as big, and the cargo capacity is not as big as those models.
While the overall vehicle is longer.
Yeah, while it's longer than those models. So you can tell that Mazda focused their efforts in different areas than the practicality. So if that doesn't matter to you, then you really won't care that much about it. But if you're looking for ultimate practicality, the CX-90 is really not going to be the spot where you find it. And lastly here, the warranty is going to be Mazda Signature Warranty, 3-year, 36,000-mile basic, 5-year, 60 powertrain, no complimentary maintenance.
And now let's talk price for the Mazda CX-90. Now, as you might have seen at the beginning, there are literally a million trim levels for this CX-90. You can get it in pretty much any flavor that you're going to want. So we start out at about $43,000, and then we go up to models like this, which are a lot closer to $60,000 as a starting point. The highest end one is the 3.3 Turbo S Premium Plus, which starts at $59,950. Now, this one, as tested today, is not much cheaper than that. As a plug-in hybrid Premium Plus, we're sitting at $58,920 when we add the $1,375 destination charge. And it is worth noting, you do not qualify for any type of tax incentive or rebate right now for the CX-90. And guys, that's where we're going to leave off on our in-depth review of the 2024 Mazda CX-90 Plug-in Hybrid Premium Plus. We certainly enjoyed testing this vehicle out for the last 7 days, and we really appreciate you watching this video because you're the reason that we're able to get this vehicle down here and test it out for that full 7 days, as well as get our range test, as well as other content. So thank you so much for your support. If you're already a subscriber, thank you for your continued support throughout all of our videos and being a part of our Car Confections family. And if you're not already a part, we welcome you in. Anyway, we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.